All right, let's pull back the curtain on how modern business really works. Behind every single purchase you make, every recommendation you get online, every product that feels like it was made just for you, there's a powerful, kind of hidden network making it all happen. It can feel a little bit strange, right? You finish a show and boom, the perfect next series is already queued up for you. Or you look up a pair of shoes once and suddenly ads for them are following you all over the internet. How on earth do they do that? And here's the cool part. Once you understand the basic blueprint of that system, you'll start seeing it absolutely everywhere. It's the engine that powers our entire world, from the biggest companies on the planet right down to your favorite local coffee shop.
So, to really get how a massive company operates, we have to start with a really simple concept. And this idea applies to everything, from baking a cake to launching a rocket into space.
It sounds a little academic, but it's simple. A system is just a bunch of parts working together to do something. Your car? That's a system designed to get you from point A to point B. The weather? That's a huge system. And a business? Yep, you guessed it, that's a system too.
So, at its core, every single system has these three basic parts. Let's use a cake, because who doesn't love cake? You have your inputs, that's the flour, sugar, and eggs. The process is you mixing it all up and baking it. And the output is, hopefully, a delicious cake. Pretty simple, right? But, what if the cake comes out too dry? That's where feedback comes into play. Tasting the cake, the output, gives you information. That feedback tells you that, hey, next time, something in the input or the process has to change.
And that brings us to the final and maybe most important piece, control. The control is you, the baker, using that feedback. It's too dry. To adjust the recipe, maybe you add more milk next time. Now the system isn't just mindlessly producing something, it's learning. It's getting smarter.
Okay, so let's take that simple model we just built and scale it way up. We're going to move from the kitchen to the boardroom and apply this exact same blueprint, input, process, output, feedback, and control to an entire company.
That's really all it is when you strip everything else away. It's just a big, complex, adaptive system with a very clear goal. It takes in all sorts of resources and transforms them into something of value for its customers.
And you can see how neatly this all maps out. The inputs? That's stuff like customer orders, raw materials, and even hiring new people. The processes are all the things the company does: manufacturing, selling, marketing. The output is the finished product or service. The feedback comes from things like sales reports and, of course, customer reviews. And the control? That's management, using all that feedback to make smart decisions and steer the whole ship.
Now, everything we've talked about so far could pretty much describe a business from 100 years ago. But today, there's a new critical element that has totally supercharged this entire model. And that secret ingredient is information.
This right here is the game changer. A business information system, or a BIS, is like a system within the system. Its only job is to take raw, messy data, like millions of individual records of what you watched last night, and turn it into useful information, like a report that says, hey, sci-fi dramas are trending up with viewers aged 25 to 34. It basically puts that feedback loop on steroids.
So what makes up one of these things? Well, it's these 5 core resources. And notice, it's not just technology. You absolutely need skilled people to find the insights. You need the hardware, the servers to store it all. You need the software to run the analysis, the raw data itself, and of course the communication networks to tie it all together in real time.
So what do these systems actually look like inside a real company? Well, they're not one size fits all. It turns out different people need very different kinds of information to do their jobs right.
Think of it like this. Down at the operational level, you've got systems just handling the day-to-day stuff, like every single sale and return. Then in the middle, you have managers at the tactical level, using systems to plan for the next few months or the next quarter. And way up at the top, at the strategic level, executives are looking at high-level dashboards to make those big, 5-year plan kind of decisions.
Now, in the old days, each of these systems was its own little island. The finance department's computer couldn't talk to the manufacturing department's computer. It was a total mess. The modern way, the new way, is to connect everything.
And that's done through something called an enterprise system. The best way to think about it is like one central nervous system for the entire company. Suddenly, everyone is working from the same data, the same version of the truth. And this integration is what makes a modern company so incredibly fast and responsive.
Which brings us to the final and honestly the most important point. Why do all this? Why go through all the trouble and expense of building these massive, complex systems? Because mastering this stuff is how companies win.
One way is you can compete on price. Think about a giant like Walmart. They use incredibly powerful systems to make every single process hyper-efficient, from stocking their warehouses to checking you out at the register. That lets them slash their costs and offer the lowest prices. Or you can compete by just being different. Your information systems can help you analyze the market to find a very specific niche. A company could use data to see, hey, there's a growing demand for high-end, eco-friendly hiking gear. And then they can tailor their products and their marketing to perfectly serve that group.
And finally, you can compete with pure innovation. By analyzing huge amounts of user data, a company like Netflix can spot a new trend before anyone else, greenlight a show they know people will love, or even invent entirely new ways to deliver entertainment that completely shake up the industry.
So really, it all boils down to this. A well-run information system isn't just a background tool. No way. It becomes a strategic weapon. It boosts efficiency, it makes it harder for new competitors to even enter the market, and it can even lock in customers by making it too much of a pain for them to switch to someone else.
You know, this quote from Capital One just says it all. They figured out a long time ago they weren't really in the credit card business. They were in the information business. They used data to understand risk better than anyone, and that's how they won. The credit card was just the way they delivered their information advantage.
So I'll leave you with this thought. Think about your own world, your job, your hobbies, your community. What's the underlying information, the underlying data that makes it all tick? And how could understanding it as a system change everything?